Hello and welcome to the One Life Church devotional series where we cover the entire Bible in 20 months. Well, today's chapters are 1 Chronicles 5 and 6. Now, when Paul was writing to the Corinthians, remember what he said about faith, hope, and love. He says, these three remain: faith, hope, and love. In other words, when we're dead, when we're the other side of the grave, faith, hope, and love, when we have been building with that substance, what we've done in faith, what we've exercised in love, where we've trusted God, put our hope in Him, that lasts for all eternity. Now, when I read through this list, because the list in 1 Chronicles 5 and 6 is a long list. It's a genealogical record of the people that were in exile. While this was being written, they were in exile. They were a nobody, really. And yet God is reminding them, and reminding the people of God that He's got them. First thing I see is that so many lives lived, gone, lived, gone, lived, gone. I look at my life and I think, whoa, I'm in my 50s already. I mean, I'm not just gone into 50. I'm in my 50s. Life lived, gone, soon will be gone. And then I look at the way God is mindful of every single life. Every single life is accounted for. Even the guys who've lived badly, they're accounted for. If you look at them, they let Israel down. They're accounted for. God holds up account. And then you look at the different roles that people filled. God, where they lived, how God used them. When you look through a list like this, you can't help but saying, Lord, this little life of mine, this little interlude in history, that is me. You're mindful of me. You have a role for me. But boy, I don't want to just be a genealogical record. I don't know about you. I want my life to count. Remember when Paul's writing to the Corinthians, he says that there will come a reckoning when we stand before God one day, when our lives are judged by Him. Christians he's talking about. And he uses this metaphor, he says, if you've built with wood, hay, and stubble, it'll just be burnt up in His glory. But if you've built with precious stones, with gold and silver, and we hear when he writes to the Corinthians and he says to them, faith, hope, love, that's the substance that lasts for all eternity. So, if you look at what's going on here, Reuben, verse 1, defiles his father's wife. So in other words, he sleeps with his stepmother. He gets removed. So actually, my boy, this is not faith. This is not love. This is not love for your father. And this is not hope. And he fizzles out. Joseph. Now, Joseph gets chucked into a dungeon in Egypt, but he trusts God. Somehow, he believes God. He has dreams about his future. And somehow, the blessing shifts from Reuben. It passes all the brothers and it goes to Joseph, the dreamer, the one who had faith, the one who trusted God. He wasn't perfect, but he has a double blessing. I mean, both his sons get blessed along with the other brothers of Israel. Why? Because that the substance of which he was building was eternal. Then you look at the Reubenites and the Gadites in verse 18 here, and they're recorded as being those who God gave a victory, a massive victory in battle. Why? Because they called out to God. They were saying, God, our faith is in you, our trust is in you. And then we move to chapter 6, and we see the different roles that were assigned the Levites, who were the guys in charge of ministry in the temple. And so it says here that Johanan, the father of Azariah, was made to be the priest who served in the temple that Solomon built. And then as he moves through this genealogical record, he says, now these are the guys that David put in charge of the music in the temple. And I'm wondering, these guys that are listed there, they wouldn't have had guitars like I've got here, but they would have had harps, they would have had cymbals. And if they were doing it in faith, with hope, with love, that resounds through history. The worship that they led Israel resounds through history. There are others mentioned here that had to present offerings, etc., etc. Now, just because God gives you a noble task to do doesn't mean that is going to endure into all eternity, is it? If I take anything out of these two chapters, it's a stark reminder of how short my life is, that God's holding my life to account, and this encouragement that whether I'm a musician, whether I am a preacher, whether I'm a businessman, let me build. Jesus, let me build on your foundation. Let me build with the substance of eternity, faith, hope, and love.